Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of the season of the Chase with Jace. I'm your host, Jace Lejeune, of course, of Gridiron Football, and super excited that this is, I can't believe it already, year 3 with Gridiron Football and doing this show. So looking forward to telling you and keeping the Tiger fans updated what's going on with their Tigers, and that's why I always like to call the show the Chase with Jace, because not only is rhymes really well, but that's what the Tigers are chasing for. It's the chase to a national championship. After all, that was a big reason why Brian Kelly came to LSU in the first place, because he wanted to chase that elusive national championship, which he's always wanted since really coming here. But year 3, and after back-to-back 10-win seasons, there's been a lot really good that Brian Kelly has really done since coming here in Baton Rouge. And I know that there's a lot of expectations for this year. And I know a lot of people were upset because of last year you had a Heisman Trophy quarterback in Jayden Daniels, who in a couple weeks could be the first quarterback taken, second quarterback taken in the upcoming NFL draft. And you haven't won the national championship with them. Well, really, you got to look at the circumstances when Brian Kelly really took this program. Really, only 30 scholarship players that he inherited when he came over from Notre Dame. And he's done a really good job. Brian Kelly inherited over only about 30 scholarship players since coming over here from Notre Dame. And he's done a really good job of building it back up and becoming a very competitive program. I mean, the first year he took the program, they went to the SEC championship game in year number 1. And he took in year number 2, 10 wins again, and had the best quarterback in the country. Gave Jayden Daniels a chance to win the Heisman, and now he has a chance to be a first-round pick and a lottery pick. So there's been some good things, but I know fans, at LSU, they want national championships. So the question is year 3 going to be the year that Brian Kelly brings the national championship to LSU? Well, we get a good look at spring practice, and this is what really the show is about, to give you all an update on how the Tigers are really doing, since as we're really approaching the month of April coming up. I just want to give you all an update. I know y'all, if you go to our website, gridironfootballusa.com, you get a chance to actually look at a lot of our spring practice reports that we've been putting up each and every practice. And there's been some good things. So 4 practices in is what the media has really got a chance to really see. The media hasn't really got a chance to see a whole lot during LSU practice, but we've got a pretty good look, especially on Saturday. We got the whole practice that was made available to us, so appreciate Coach Kelly for allowing us to have that full practice availability, and we got to see a lot of things on Saturday. But obviously, people want to know. First things first is, what about the quarterback position? That's what everybody wants to know. And Ben, who's been our camera guy and with us, he definitely wants to find out what the quarterback situation is, because he's coached Ricky and been around Ricky Collins. So here's the update. Everybody wants to know, after Jayden Daniels, what about Garrett Nussmeier? And Garrett Nussmeier has proven that he is going to be the guy. There's no question just how he's really carrying this team. He's led his team. Brian Kelly's even said that this as most of a player-led team since he's been here at LSU, which is saying a lot. And it comes from the top. And where it comes from, where you want your leader to be, the quarterback. And Garrett Nussmeier, I think being under the wing the last couple of years, being under the wing of Jayden Daniels, seeing him work, and I think that will pay dividends to see what he can do. And that's the thing too. We've seen Garrett Nussmeier come into games and play really well. In fact, he played in the SEC championship game when Jayden Daniels got hurt, and he played really well. I mean, he threw a couple touchdown passes against the Bulldogs, a couple deep touchdown throws, made some plays out there. Obviously, the bowl game, if you saw the bowl game at the end of last season when Garrett Nussmeier got the start, his first, I guess you'd say, official start that he had in his LSU career, and he threw for over 300 yards and led a game-winning drive against Wisconsin. So the sky's the limit to see what Garrett Nussmeier can do in this offense, and the keys are his. I mean, it's like Jayden Daniels has given him the keys to to the Corvette, right? To the Porsche. So it's his show now, and he's got a lot of weapons around him. But there's no doubt about that. And Garrett Nussmeier is going to be your quarterback one as we approach fall. The question is, who's going to be his backup? And that's going to be the biggest question. There's not really a quarterback controversy right now as far as who the star is going to be. As everybody knows, it's going to be Garrett Nussmeier. Question is who's going to be behind him. And it's been a really good battle so far. AJ Swan comes in. He's a transfer from Vanderbilt. He's been coming in and has a lot of experience, well, a lot more experience coming in than Ricky Collins. And Ricky has the more upside. Ricky is the more talented guy than AJ Swan. So you've seen a lot of reps between both guys, and a lot of guys been getting good work today. I believe AJ was taking the second team reps with the second team offense. On Saturday, we saw Ricky Collins take second team's reps with the second team offense. So it's going to be back and forth, and it's going to be a big battle. They brought AJ Swan in because they want to get some experience behind Garrett Nussmeier because, face it, I mean, Ricky Collins, as talented as he is, he hasn't gotten a lot of experience. And I believe he only played one game last year. So that's the biggest thing, is experience. And right now AJ has it, but Ricky Collins has a year in the system, in Joe Sloan's system. So we're going to see what plays out with that quarterback battle, but it's been tight. I mean, right now I can't really tell the difference who's ahead of the other based off what we've seen from spring. We got a whole month left of spring football too, so we're going to see more of these two guys battle it out. But right now it's been really tight between Swan and Ricky Collins, and that's going to be a fun battle to watch. Colin Hurley's a very talented quarterback as a freshman coming in, really early enrollee. He really should be going through his senior year of high school, but I've got a chance to have a conversation once or twice with Colin. Very mature, ahead of his years. I mean, he approaches life like he's 30 years old, and he just turned 17. So he is way above his years, and he's going to be a very special quarterback when it's all said and done at LSU. It's just that he's really young. He just turned 17 years old. Garrett Nussmeier told us in practice that he joked about his birthday. It was his birthday, and he told him happy 13th birthday to show you how young he really is. Just a joke with him. But yeah, he's got a really bright future. But this year it's going to be Nussmeier, and it's going to be a battle between AJ Swan and Ricky to see who that second quarterback's going to be. Running back, we move on to the running back position. It's sparse right now. And with the unfortunate situation, I mean, you can say what all y'all can say about the Trey Holly situation going on. Without him, regardless of what's been going on, and we'll see what the legal system says about that later on. But right now, you only have 2 scholarship running backs right now in the spring. You only have, and one of them was a former walk-on a couple years ago, and it's Josh Williams. And Josh Williams has been a great story. Was a star last year. Has had a lot of big moments at LSU, a lot of big plays at LSU, and he's been a really great story to follow and cover him the last couple of years. You know what you have for him. He is a reliable back. He's a third down back. He can block. He can catch. He's reliable. You know what you're going to get from Josh Williams. As far as the superstar, NFL potential, you talk about all the great running backs that have been through LSU, like the Leonard Fournettes of the world that's come through LSU. Caleb Jackson's that next guy. I mean, you're talking about just size, speed, agility, power, strength, like you name it. You saw what he did last year against Mississippi State when he just trucked the Mississippi State defender. And I saw him run a lot at Liberty. And you look at Le'Veon Moss, who's actually playing at Texas A&M, was a starter at Texas A&M. He actually outran Le'Veon Moss in the district track meet back when he was at Liberty High. And he's 230 pounds, which is insane to be that big and that fast. You saw him return kicks last year. I mean, the next great running back at LSU, it could be Caleb Jackson. And I really do believe that this could be a breakout year for him. And you're going to be following along to see why Caleb Jackson is that next big-time back. As far as talent alone, there's no question. So ability itself, you have two good guys. Like if you come in with Josh Williams and Caleb Jackson, you're pretty confident with those two. The question is, the problem is depth behind them. Because like I said, you only have two scholarship running backs. We'll see whether or not Trey Holly comes back in the fold. But I mean, you have a freshman running back coming in as well, too, from Duncanville. So that gives you at most 3 to 4 scholarship running backs in the fall, and they really need to get another one. There were a lot of running backs, a lot of mouths to feed, because and it's really hurt LSU because Noah Cain, he's entered the NFL draft. Logan Diggs was your starting running back last year, was your leading rusher besides Jaden Daniels. He went to Ole Miss. He transferred to Ole Miss when he could have been the number 1 running back at LSU this year. So losing those two guys really hurts. Armani Goodwin transferred out, so that kind of leaves you in a position that you're in right now with 2 scholarship running backs. And I mean, Caden Durham is the running back I was referring to from Duncanville. Had a great high school career, state champion running back at Duncanville. Great career, great prep running back, and a lot of really high potential for him. But he's a freshman coming in, so it's going to be a lot of questions at the running back room. But we'll see if this is a position group after spring practice. I'm sure we'll talk more about it on these episodes of the Chase with Jace, that the running back position, maybe they can go through the transfer portal and see what they can do there and pick up a guy or two in the transfer portal. But we'll see what LSU does with that. As far as depth at wide receiver, you're good there right now. Brian Kelly, we asked him in our media availability about the wide receivers, and the wide receiver position is loaded. Now you don't have a number 1, number 2, proven number 1, proven number 2 right now, like you did in Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. Those two guys are going to be running the pro days tomorrow, and they're going to be first-round picks. There's no doubt about that. And it's going to be huge losses for LSU. But the talent there, it's always been talented at LSU at wide receivers. You can get wide receivers at LSU, and it's no exception there. Now, Kyron Lacey, I think he comes in as the leader of that group at wide receiver. And you look at Kyron Lacey, physically, he's got it. I mean, he's big, strong, physical. He was outstanding last year after the catch. Now he needed to be more consistent in actually catching passes. He had some drops last year, so he needed to be more consistent in that. But as far as potential and talent alone, I mean, the Thibodeau product is a very talented player, and he has a chance to really establish himself as the number 1 guy. Was the number 3 guy last year behind Neighbors and Thomas, made some plays, but this could be a chance for him to be that number 1 guy. Brian Kelly has told us that he's really taken that wide receiver 1 mentality. And it's that mentality that separates good players from elite players. Right now, he's got that mentality this year that's making him like a Malik Neighbors, a Brian Thomas, a wide receiver 1 mindset. That mentality, that killer mentality that Kobe Bryant always liked to talk about. He's starting to get that and pick up on that a lot. Last year, Brian Kelly said that he didn't have that. And talent alone can get you so much. But I think Kyron Lacey's really approaching that this offseason of being that guy, being that number 1 receiver. And Chris Hilton, I love to see Chris Hilton get back on the field. And when Chris Hilton has set foot on the field at wide receiver, you saw what he can do. I really liked how Garrett Nussmeier and Chris have really connected in the fall. I really thought that coming to this year that duo could be really special, especially with the deep ball. Garrett's ability to throw the deep ball, and of course Chris Hilton being a deep threat. That could be a deadly combination this year in the SEC. And he just got to stay healthy, and that's the biggest thing. As long as Chris Hilton stays healthy, he's had some setbacks with injuries in the past, but if he sets foot on the field this year and can avoid the injury bug like he had the last couple of years, Kyron Lacey and Chris Hilton could be a good 1-2 punch. The biggest battle right now is who's going to be that starting third receiver. Right now, we've seen Aaron Anderson and we've seen Kyle Parker. Aaron Anderson came in, was an Alabama transfer from last year, and everybody thought that he was going to be that dynamic guy, and especially not only as a wide receiver, but in the punt return game. He played in the car, was a 5-star receiver in the car, but we just didn't see that in fruition last year. It was a little bit of a disappointment last year in terms of that, but he did suffer some injuries last year and was recovering from some injuries as well when he was at Alabama. But I'm looking forward to see what he does this upcoming season, and it's good to have a guy like Kyle Parker push him. Kyle Parker is a sophomore. Not a lot of people really know about him, but he's just impressed really everybody that's around me. Every time in practice, he comes up, just makes plays. He makes plays, and he's just so consistent in his technique and his fundamentals, and he's just a pro. Already he's only a sophomore, and you can tell he's already approaching things like a 5th, 6th year guy. And he's also in the return game right now, so he's also getting some punt returns, some kick returns, so he's going to see the field. He is a great player. Expect him to have a big role. LSU brought in 2 transfers as well at wide receiver, so keep an eye on that. Just because of the lack of really targets, I guess, from last year. Because really, you had Kyron Lacey last year getting a lot of targets. Chris Hilton, that's about it. Besides that, you don't really have a lot of proven receivers. You got a lot of talented receivers, but you don't have a lot of proven receivers. And that's why they brought in C.J. Daniels, who was a 1,000-yard wide receiver at Liberty. And that's why they also brought Xavier Thomas as well, who is a proven player in the SEC, not only as a wide receiver at Mississippi State, but he's also been a punt returner, and that's been an issue at LSU the last couple of years, to find that consistent punt returner, and with his experience in the SEC, that could be that type of role for him this upcoming fall. Everybody's asking about Shelton Sampson. Remember the talented 5-star prospect out of Catholic High School out here in Baton Rouge. He's still work in progress right now in spring. As you can tell, Cortez Hankton is still working with him a little bit. Last time we checked, I think he's still working with he's working some with the 2s, but he's been with the 3s, so it's still been a work in progress. Obviously very talented, but I think a raw product right now on the field until we see him get a much bigger role. I'm not sure how much time it's still pretty early. You still got spring, you got to go through fall. Still kind of early, but we'll see where Shelton really stands. But we'll see. We still got some time, and we'll see where Shelton stands. But as far as talent alone and potential, there's no question that the ceiling's very high for Shelton. He's just got some stuff to work on as far as just transitioning from high school and where he was dominating people at Catholic to playing in the SEC. So it's a little bit of a transition. I think Shelton's still trying to get in that transition as well. Tight ends, I think you're going to see, because of the lack of experience at wide receiver, you're going to see a lot more 12 personnel. You're going to see a lot more tight ends being involved in this offense. And Brian Kelly, you go back to Notre Dame, they've had a lot of really productive tight ends. And they've really gone down the list, and it's been a lot that have really gone through there. In Cincinnati too. Go back Travis Kelce. That's a pretty big name, and Kyle Rudolph, and he's produced a lot of really good tight ends. So, and obviously Mason Taylor has a chance to be the next big name to come out of this tight end room under the tutelage of Brian Kelly, and they brought in as well Slade Nagel too, the tight ends coach, comes in from Tulane, be the tight ends coach for LSU. And it's a deep group. Mason Taylor is a star. Obviously, maybe a little bit of a drop-off from 2 years ago. We had that just breakout freshman campaign, but he was dealing with some injuries last year. And you saw the success Jaden Daniels had as a runner, and obviously with the 2 receivers. But I think this year, just because a little bit of the inexperience at wide receiver, I think you're going to see an increased role from Mason Taylor as a pass catcher, and see that kind of first-round talent at that position he really is. But Mac Markway is a guy I played a lot last year, and he's kind of the guy that can block and catch. He's more of kind of your prototypical tight end. And then you have Kamorian Pimpton, who was one of my biggest winners from fall camp last year. As far as a receiving tight end, think of like a Jimmy Graham, that type, basketball frame, big, talented receiver that can catch. Really a big glorified wide receiver that you will. Kamorian Pimpton's that guy. And then when you add Trey'Dez Green coming in from Zachary, the 5-star tight end that was 6'7" and also was a big-time basketball prospect that has a chance to be LSU's biggest tight end recruit they've ever had. Yeah, that group is pretty good. So you're going to expect a lot of 12 personnel, and because of the depth at tight end, you're going to see a lot of these guys work. Offensive line-wise, going through it, just from what I've seen so far through only a couple practices, the offensive line, and I asked Brian Kelly about this because the other day I asked him about Tyree Adams and Bo Bordelon. The reason why I asked about those two is because everybody knows about Will Campbell and Emory Jones. So you know what they can do. They're all American type players, all SEC type players. They're going to be first round picks when it's all said and done. So you know what you got from them. So spring, you don't really need to throw them out there. So this is an opportunity for guys like Tyree Adams, Bo Bordelon to get those starting reps, just so you'll know who to lean on, just in case Emory Jones or Will Campbell, if something were to happen to him during the season. And Brian Kelly pretty much responded that we just need them to get those reps. We know how talented they are, and Brad Davis, the offensive line coach at LSU, knows how talented they are. They just need to get more and more reps and see how they can work. But I think they really like Tyree Adams to be that third tackle, just in case something were to happen to Campbell or Jones. Emory Jones hasn't been full participant in practice up until about today. We went to practice today, and he was back with the first team offensive line, so he's working some there. But it's good. I like what Brian Kelly and Brad are doing. Brad Davis. I like what they're doing because you already know what you got with those two. Might as well establish that depth behind them because you're going to need that in a growing SEC schedule. On the inside, DJ Chester is the center, and I think that's a guy that they've always liked. DJ actually went into the game against Missouri on the road when Charles Turner got hurt, who was the starting center at LSU. And he fared himself pretty well in that circumstance, getting into the game at the center position, which is pretty crucial on the road to get into. So they like DJ and DJ Chester has really impressed last year as a freshman. I mean, I remember like Brian Kelly raving about DJ during fall practice last year. So saying that as a freshman, that shows you what kind of potential he has there. And him and Garrett have been working a lot together in the offseason. And it's really good for DJ to have two veteran guys by you. Miles Frazier is back at right guard, and you have Garrett Dellinger, who is right beside you at left guard. Everybody around you, they're veterans. So it's really good for DJ to have that veteran leadership to lean on, even though he's kind of the newcomer to the group with those. But you have 4 returning starters on the offensive line. So that is really good. Moving on to the defense, the defensive line. You thought running back was pretty sparse. I mean, the defensive line is pretty thin right now, too. Bo Davis comes in, one of the best defensive line coaches in the country. Comes in with a pretty tough situation. And I think a lot of it had to do with the NFL draft. I mean, you lose Mason Smith to the NFL draft. You lose Mekhi Wingo. Those are obviously, if you got 1 or 2 of those guys back, that would make a huge difference into what the defense, the interior of the defensive line is looking like right now. But right now, and you also got to consider as well that there's going to be reinforcements coming in the fall, but you just got to look at what's going on right now in the spring. And right now in the spring, you don't have bodies right now in the interior of the defensive line. And the defensive line, you only have Jacobian Guillory coming back. Now, Jacobian Guillory's been there for a long time. I mean, he's been through so many defensive line coaches. He's been there with Coach Orgeron. He's been there for a long time. He's a wily veteran of this group. It's good to have him back, and it's now his opportunity to really shine, to be a starter. He's always been that rotation guy. Now it's a chance for him to be a starter in the SEC. You have Jalen Lee, who was a transfer last year from Florida. He's the other defensive tackle besides him. But besides those two, it's you're kind of like pulling for straws right now is what you're doing on the defensive line. Because you have a JUCO guy, Sean Washington, talented guy, played at Warren Easton, signed with Georgia, was good enough to show you what kind of talent he is, signed with the Georgia Bulldogs, went the JUCO route, and is back here at LSU. And then you have a true freshman, Demarion Johnson, from Westgate. But besides that, you have walk-ons. So that's where you're at right now on the interior. So when LSU finishes up spring, there's no question they're going to be looking to the transfer portal to try to find bodies for the defensive tackle position. And that's a solid thing about having the transfer portal is finding those weaknesses and solidifying those strengths. That's how you work the transfer portal. And Brian Kelly even said it. You don't heavily rely on the transfer portal to help you be a competitive team, but that could be a good tool to use in order to help a deficiency and make that even better. That's what's good about the transfer portal. So they're going to use that to their disposal, I believe, in the spring, after the spring game. You'll probably hear a couple of names in transfer portal before then as well. Linebackers, before I go to linebackers, defensive ends. Now, the defensive ends, there's some pretty talented guys on the edges. And Deshaun Womack is a player that a lot of fans, a lot of the media were really hoping to see a lot more of last year because he's shown some flashes, especially in the LSU defense that struggled so much last year. This was a guy that really won on the field. He was a former 5-star from Baltimore, Maryland product, and he's got all the God-gifted ability. That's why he's a 5-star, right? So long, lean, athletic. He's a freak of nature, and he's kind of fits the mold of some of these great defensive end pass rushers in the past, like the Borkevius Mingos, the Sam Montgomerys, those type of guys. The Arden Keys of the world, those guys, the Neil Hunters. So he kind of fits that mold as far as being that type of guy. And you have a veteran guy on the other side. You got Braden Swinson. You got Savion Jones. Those guys are really good veteran guys that have proven to be successful and proven that they can play in the SEC. At the linebacker, Blake Baker has been working with this group. He's a new defensive coordinator at LSU, but he's not new to LSU. He was a linebackers coach a couple years ago, and you probably heard of this name, but Damone Clark, who was at LSU, Blake Baker played a big part in Damone's success, of why Damone became former Gridiron Football intern Damone Clark became such a big success and was an All-American that led him to a good career right now with the Dallas Cowboys. So Blake Baker was a big part in that, and now he has a chance to really mold Harold Perkins, because everybody knows what kind of talent Harold Perkins is. You saw the flashes he had as a freshman, especially when he had that 5-sack game against Arkansas. He was the main reason why they beat Arkansas that day. And he has a chance to be special. Harold Perkins, as far as defensive talents, has a chance to be an all-time great just off his talent alone. But can Blake Baker harness that and turn him into that? So the biggest question, can Blake Baker harness that ability that Harold Perkins does have and make him an All-American player? And I think he can. And what I like most about Blake Baker is how hands-on he is with the guys. He's got cleats on himself during practice, showing the guys, running the cuts, running the coverages as a player would run the drill. He's doing all that, showing them. So that's, being a young guy like he is, that's beneficial, because a lot of players learn different. Sometimes you have to tell them something and immediately get it. Sometimes you have to show them, and they see they're visual guys and they want to see it. And sometimes you got to tell him once or twice, but he's a guy that can do all that. And I think he's a good teacher. So being a guy that's hands-on like that and working with Harold Perkins and Greg Penn knows what it's like to be under Blake Baker, because Greg Penn was a freshman when Baker was on the staff a couple years ago with Damone Clark. So have a veteran like that can demonstrate, say, hey, what Baker is telling us works, because that's be a voice for that defense. And if he can say that, then I think the rest of the defense will pick up. So, and I think the biggest thing that when Greg Penn was talking to the media about this as well, it's not, they're not thinking, they're just reacting. And that's what you want your defense to do. You don't want your defense to think about all of this while the play is going on. You just want them to react. And I think that's the biggest thing that Blake Baker has really gotten this defense to do, is just to react and not to overthink anything. Because that's what gets you in trouble. And that got LSU in trouble a lot last year when they were overthinking stuff. And not only that last year, but go back in 2020 when they were overthinking. Try to make it simple. Simplify it. And just let your athletes be athletes. And I think that is what Blake Baker is going to try to do. So you have those two, because LSU runs a 4-2-5. So you're going to have those two. And then behind them, you're going to have the Weeks brothers, Wes and Whit Weeks. Everybody was really talking about how there weren't many bright spots last year. Let's just say it. There weren't many bright spots on LSU's defense last year. But a guy that had some splash plays last year was Whit Weeks. And Whit Weeks is a very talented player. Really came on strong. I think have a really big year. Could be that third backer, just in case, like if Greg Penn needs a breather or Harold Perkins needs a breather, he can come in and not skip a beat. So having a guy like that's really good. His brother Wes is a veteran player, reliable player. It's good to have him there. Christian Braithwaite, talented prospect himself. He's a fifth linebacker. Having Devon Keys, a talented. So you got some bodies there at linebacker to work with. So we're going to see how Blake Baker does with that group, because I know what he's capable of and the success that he's really had, not only as a linebackers coach at LSU, but the success that he's also had at Missouri when he was a defensive coordinator in Missouri last year. And as you can tell, Missouri had himself a breakout year last year and a really good year, making a New Year's Six bowl game and winning a New Year's Six bowl game in the Cotton Bowl. Going to the secondary, a lot of people are shaking their heads when they mention secondary at LSU, just because of the problems last year. And, it's unfortunate, because LSU's offense last year was one of the best offenses in college football history. And for that team to have 3 losses is very disappointing. Show you how disappointed it was on the defensive end, as just as much impressive as it was on the offensive end, seeing what they're doing week in and week out. In the secondary, really, I feel like they're in a better situation they are in the secondary, and especially having Corey Raymond come back. I mean, Corey Raymond coming back is such a big difference. Having a guy that's really molded LSU into what they are known as DBU. The reason why they're known as DBU, a big part of it, was what Corey Raymond did. So having him come back, coming back to a place where he loves the coach at and wants to teach these guys, it's really big. And we as far as the talent too, to get guys that are 4 or 5 stars, those type of prospects, the talent to come back to Baton Rouge, I think that's why it was big to get a guy like Corey Raymond back to Baton Rouge. As far as cornerbacks are concerned, Zy Alexander has been, because of the ACL injury he had last year, and it came at a tough time, because I feel like that Zy Alexander was starting to play better at cornerback, and then it was before the Alabama game too, and that's when the injury happened. But you have a lot of young talent. It's kind of like the receiver position, that there's talent, but there's not a lot of proven talent. We've seen some guys come in and make some plays every now and then, but I mean, as far as how bad the secondary was last year, everybody really got to play. Everybody got a chance to get some experience. But this is a talented group. I mean, Ashton Stamps was one of the winners from fall practice last year because he was really coming on last year during the fall as a cornerback and got to see a lot of time. So you have him on one end, Javian Toviano at the other end. Thought the secondary got a little bit better at the end of the season when guys like that were seeing the field. But yeah, you have those two at cornerback. You have some good depth behind them too. I mean, Ryan Yates has played nickel. You want to see him play some safety, some nickel, some guy to give you some experience there. And yeah, there's J.K. Johnson. He's an Ohio State transfer. Was one of those guys that came in last year and just had injuries, and he missed the whole last year. So we'll see what J.K. Johnson does coming back. You have another Ohio State transfer that comes in Jair Brown. He's a New Orleans product from Warren Easton. He comes back to Louisiana. So it's good that they're getting guys that or from Louisiana that signed Division I somewhere else, but they're coming back. So it's really good to see that. So you got a couple of Ohio State guys in the fold there. And then you have Jeremiah Hughes. He was a freshman last year, a talented freshman, and got to see some playing time. P.J. Woodland's a current freshman that has really impressed a lot of coaches. So there's some names out there to throw out. I like what they're doing at safety too, because Major Burns was a liability in coverage a lot last year, but I think what his strong suit is being closer to the line of scrimmage, and I think putting him in when you have that 4-2-5 look, you're going to have that fifth DB be that star position is what they call it. It's kind of like a nickel position, but it's just like being closer to the line of scrimmage and having that extra man in the box instead of like maybe you can have a 4-3. They kind of use that guy as like an extra guy in the box, and that's what Major Burns is. I think he's a really good tackler. He's physical. He gets off blocks. He can take on tight ends. He can take on bigger guys in the run game, and I think that's where his strength is at, and I think that's where he needs to be. Sage Ryan's a really good athlete, and he's an experienced guy, and he's already off to a really good start this spring. He had 3 interceptions on Saturday's practice against Garrett Nussmeier. It wasn't like he was just going against the first team offense and the second team offense and the third. All 3 came against your quarterback one, your QB1, Garrett Nussmeier. So I think having him back, a veteran guy like that can play so many positions, that's really crucial for LSU. Good to get him back in the fold of things. And then you have a Texas A&M transfer, Jordan Gilbert, who's from U-High, is a Baton Rouge product. Another guy, like I said, about Jair Brown being a Louisiana guy, coming back, he is. And Jordan Gilbert has starting experience in the SEC at Texas A&M. He's getting first-team reps at safety. And a guy to keep an eye out for, and he's probably been my biggest winner so far through 4 practices, is Deshaun McBride. Keep an eye out for this name. I want to say, keep an eye out for this name, Deshaun McBride. He is a freshman from Denham Springs High School. I covered him a lot. I even wrote some articles about him when he was coming up at Denham Springs. Talk about looking the part. Long, 6'4", rangy, good ball skills. Played wide receiver at Denham Springs, but he went up against wide receivers, tight ends, and shut them down one-on-ones. And he's confident. He's aggressive. He's physical. Keep an eye on Deshaun McBride. I would not be surprised. Everybody was talking about Ashton Stamps as a freshman, getting some starting reps at corner. Do not be surprised. Even though you got some veteran guys, you got Major Burns, you got Sage Ryan, you got Jordan Gilbert, but do not be surprised if this freshman sees the field and plays a lot. That's all I got to say. Haven't really seen much of the kickers and punters, to be honest with you. We only seen them like maybe one time. JV, I mean, after losing the guy that's been really your guy the last couple of years, and Jay Bramblett, you're kind of looking for that next guy. And Peyton Todd was a guy I covered at West Monroe, and he's always had he has a can leg. and we just haven't been able to really see it because I know Brian Kelly brought in one of his punters over here from Notre Dame and Jay Bramlett. So it's Peyton Todd's really job to lose. So we'll see more of Peyton Todd and see what he does. And Damian Ramos comes back as your kicker. So it's really good to get a veteran guy at kicker to come back for your program. And he's made a lot of big kicks in the past. You got some really talented freshmen coming in, like the kid from Parkway, who's like really talented kicker. So it gives some competition, but we'll see how that battle really goes. And as far as kick return and punt return. And they brought in Xavier Thomas over for punt return, but he's getting battled. They're going to get some Javen Nicholas is still with LSU at punt return. He's getting some looks there. And Kyle Parker is the guy I mentioned earlier with the wide receivers. He's getting some looks there too, returning punts. So yeah, they got some options. I mean, Aaron Anderson. They brought him over from Alabama to be that explosive guy, that playmaker that can just not only field it but can score. They brought him over from Alabama. Obviously, didn't really work out too much last year. So we'll see if it makes a difference if anything changes with that. But I haven't really seen a lot of the special teams unit yet. So we're going to get more and more looks of them as we progress through spring practice. But we're going to get some updates. We're going to have a different show each week of Chase with Jace. We'll break down spring football. We'll break down the pro day. Next week's show, next Wednesday, we'll go back and look at LSU's pro day. And obviously it's a big day. This is actually taped on Tuesday, so it's before the pro day. And you got a lot of NFL teams coming for obvious reasons because Jayden Daniels is going to be throwing. Malik Neighbors is going to be there. Brian Thomas. All these guys are going to be running through all these workouts, these drills in front of NFL scouts and NFL general GMs and coaches and a lot of big name who's who people are going to be there at LSU for Pro Day tomorrow. So a lot of big talent, and it's going to be a big day. I'm looking forward to being there for covering my second LSU Pro Day. It's going to be a really fun experience. I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be really fun. I can't wait for it, and it's going to be intriguing, and I know there's going to be a lot of teams represented. Obviously, everybody's looking at Jayden Daniels because Jayden Daniels has a chance to be a lottery pick and has a chance to go really high in the draft, maybe the second quarterback drafted in the draft this year. So there's going to be a lot of NFL teams that will be there tomorrow to watch him throw. And there's going to be a lot of teams just to see Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas because they're first-round talents. And there's going to be teams that need a wide receiver, and they're going to be seeing Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas in person run through the combine. There's a lot of other names too. Those are the three big guys. Those are the three guys that everybody knows about that are going to be going through Pro Day, and like ESPN's going to be there, and NFL Network's going to be there because they know what the headlines about those three guys about being three potential first round draft picks. But you go and look. There's other guys that are going to be working out tomorrow, and a couple guys on D-line, Mason Smith. We'll see how healthy he looks tomorrow. I know he was a 5-star prospect, and injuries have kind of really hurt him over his LSU career, but the potential, the talent is there, and that's why he was highly regarded coming out of high school. Jordan Jefferson, though, this is not the quarterback Jordan Jefferson a couple years ago, but this was a defensive tackle and made some big plays for LSU. Was pretty consistent for LSU. I wish he would have been back for another year, but I think he only had that 1 year of eligibility. So I'm looking forward to see what he does. Charles Turner is participating in the Pro Day. Noah Kane, that was one of the running backs at LSU, was really clutch near the goal line, scored a lot of short yards touchdowns for LSU. Wish you would have him back again. I thought he would have been really good for LSU to get him back for another year, but Noah decided that he was going to declare for the NFL draft. Jay Bramlett, the punter the last couple of years, was going to pro day. Mekhi Wingo was an All-American at LSU at defensive tackle. Would have really loved Mekhi Wingo to come back. I think they were urging Mekhi to come back, but I get it. Mekhi definitely has a chance to be a really good veteran, a really good pro in the NFL. And then you see Ovia Gofo, defensive lineman, was a starting defensive end for LSU last year, and Omar Spates, who came in from Oregon State, was a starting linebacker at LSU last year. So a lot of really good talent. I mean, everybody knows about the three names that everybody knows about with the quarterback, the receivers, and of course what they did last year. But I'm really looking forward to see what these guys do tomorrow, because I mean, it's a dream, right? I mean, all these guys have dreamed about playing in the NFL, and now they'll get their chance, their audition tape, as you would call it, in front of NFL coaches, GM, scouts, you name it. Who's going to be there? So this is going to be a really key moment for these guys to see what they do, in front of really the high end of the NFL, and we'll see what they do and see if they can elevate their draft stock, even though there's some guys in there like Daniels, Neighbors, and Thomas that already really showcase what they can do, and they pretty much already elevated their draft stock already. So that's just kind of like a spring update for y'all guys. This is the first show of the 2024 season. And looking forward to a really exciting pro day tomorrow. Make sure to go to our website, GridironFootballUSA.com. We got all kinds of LSU coverage. You can go to our website. We have spring practice reports, and we're going to have, of course, a lot of coverage of pro day later in the week. And then on the next episode, you will see some footage of LSU pro day. And we'll talk a little bit more about spring football. I think our next spring practice that we'll go to is on Tuesday. So we'll probably have maybe some more to report for you. But right now, not too much going on through 4 spring practices that we have access to. We've only had 1 practice of the 4 that we were there for the whole time. So we don't really have a lot of information for you. But if we do get a lot of information, of course, you can find it at GridironFootballUSA.com. And then check out next Wednesday will be another episode of the Chase with Jace. We'll break down what pro day was for LSU, and then as we go more and more into the spring, we'll probably get some interviews with some players, and maybe some interviews with as well with some recruits coming up that are actively have LSU as an offer, or they're coming to LSU. So keep up with all of it. Like we said, Gridiron Football USA, it's all football all the time. So thank y'all. It was really good catching up with all of y'all guys, and looking forward to another episode next week of the Chase with Jace, and a good way to start the 2024 season. And we'll see y'all next time on another exciting episode of the Chase with Jace.